Hey everyone, Mythic ODM here. I've had many conversations with friends and fellow gamers about what is the difference between Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and Pathfinder 2e. Now, let me make one thing very clear in this video. There are no better systems. People prefer to play a specific game, and that means their preference is the right one for them. I've played D&D and host other TTRPGs since 1984.
You're old. Just be old.
I've seen all sorts of systems come and go, and other systems come and then change dramatically over the years. Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder are no exceptions to either. Let's talk about how they're similar. Then we can get into the diversity of the two. In both systems, players create a character. They pick their race, and it's called an ancestry in Pathfinder. Race is changing to species in the next D&D edition. You pick a class, and you pick a background. Each of these uses an array of stats for your character's abilities, such as strength, con, and wisdom. Now, just a quick note, the Pathfinder 2e is dropping the ability scores in the remastered and just keeping the ability modifiers. Each uses a high pass system for dice results, meaning the higher the number is always better. Hitting, damage, skill checks, etc. The higher the roll and the modifier, the better your chance to succeed. Players go on adventures. They run combat and gain experience points. At certain milestones, players increase their levels, which unlocks new abilities, new skills, feats, etc. So I can drone on and on about the similarities, but that's not what you're here for.
Get on with it.
Let's talk about how they differ. Again, players prefer certain ways to play the games, and that is 100% fine. Under no circumstances am I telling you which one you should play. Each player or each group can take this information away and do with it as they please. I'd love to hear more in the comments about why you prefer one of the systems over the other. Now, please don't start a flame war about which system's better. If you want to try to get people into your preferred system, talk up the reasons why they should play it, not the reasons why not to play the other. It works both ways. So I do play in a 5e campaign. I do run Pathfinder 2e Kingmaker over on Twitch. And I will continue to play in both and run both as my mood hits. So which system do I prefer? Well, I'll tell you at the end of the video. One of the important ways they are different. Let's start with the basics of character creation. So in Dungeons & Dragons, you can roll for your stats or assign them through a point-buy system or an array. In Pathfinder 2e, all stats start at 10, and then as you choose your class, ancestry, and background, these stats gain bumps. The stats are going away in the Pathfinder Remastered, but you can watch my other videos about the remastered project and see what's going on. In Dungeons & Dragons, your background gives you some skill proficiencies and normally your starting equipment. It doesn't alter your ability scores. Your species can change your ability scores. Hit points in D&D are set by your class and your constitution modifier. They can vary if you roll your starting hit points. In Pathfinder, your ancestry and class dictate your starting hit points as well as your con modifier. So in Pathfinder 2e, characters start with more hit points than in Dungeons & Dragons. Although you level up in both games, Pathfinder has many more options for characters through feats, whether that's skill feats, class feats, and ancestry feats. It does allow characters to be a little more diverse. Multiclassing is much different in the two systems. In D&D 5e, when you level, you can choose another class. You gain some abilities of that class, spells, skills, proficiencies. This works great for classes you may just want to dip into for a couple neat abilities, like 2 levels of fighter for action surge as an example. In Pathfinder, you pick an archetype dedication. This usually gives you a feat from a specific class or specialization, and most of the times it gives you some type of skill training. There are some limits to this, as in the rules as written, you sacrifice a feat from your primary class to pick up the dedication. But most tables play with something called the free archetype rule, which does not limit you this way. Again, this leads to more customization for your character. There's a price to pay with Pathfinder 2e rules though. As there are more options, there are more rules that players and GMs have to learn. That is one of the big trade-offs for customization, a steep learning curve. I find D&D to be kind of a simpler and a little bit easier system to explain character creation to for new players. I found the options in Pathfinder are a lot for new players to take in, and they can get overwhelmed fairly easily at the sheer amount of options. Both systems do have digital assistants to help players start characters. D&D has D&D Beyond. Pathfinder has a fan site called Path Builder. Both are online and browser-based. Both store your character. I'd give Path Builder a bit of an edge as you can kind of plan out your character right to 20th level on a single screen. which can be fun for theory crafting and plotting a character out. D&D Beyond does require you to purchase books to unlock anything not in the player's handbook, so there is a cost. Now, if your dungeon master has all the books and you're in their campaign, they can share those books with you, so there is no additional cost to you. Pathbuilder uses Paizo's OGL to import their information for free. There is an $8 USD paid version that is a pretty marginal cost for what you get. The folks that made D&D Beyond have a Pathfinder version called Nexus that opened its character beta as well. This is, again, a fully paid system, just like D&D Beyond, so there's a cost to use it. Okay, let's move on from the basics of characters. Let's move into combat, an important part of both systems. This is where the two systems really show their difference. So in 5e, you get a standard action, a move, a bonus, and a reaction action. Movement can be combined with your standard action, where you can split up that movement and attack or make multiple attacks as you do so. You can interact with object as well, so pull a potion and then drink it as your action. You can cast a spell, climb, or do a number of things. Moving around a monster does not draw an attack opportunity as long as you do not leave its threatened area. Now, Pathfinder is a whole different beast. Pathfinder uses the 3-action economy, where everything, and I do mean everything, takes one or more of your actions in a turn. Want to draw your sword? That's an action. Step 5 feet? That's an action. It's an action to swing your weapon? Yep. Cast a spell? Well, that could be anywhere between a single action to all 3 of your actions. You cannot break up your stride, which is your movement, to attack. Once you take another action, the last one stops. Not every creature can take an opportunity attack, so walk around a dragon if you feel lucky. There's also an option to attack more than once. You just take a penalty to do so. It's -5 for your second action on the turn, -10 for your third, -4 and -8 if the weapon is agile, as in it uses your dexterity. The 3-action economy is both excellent and frustrating at the same time. You and your party really need to work together to get the most out of your turns. As a GM, I do like the 3-action economy, as once a player or monster does their 3 actions in a turn, they're done. I find that in D&D, there's always the, the player forgets their bonus action, or they forget to finish their move, or, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they rewind their turn a little bit to get their extra actions in, and it can slow the game down a lot. Now, 5e has advantage and disadvantage with d20 rolls. If something grants advantage, roll 2d20, take the highest, verse that with disadvantage. There's no stacking these effects, so you don't count how many things could give you an advantage and then subtract the disadvantages. If you get both, no matter how many of each, they cancel each other out. Roll a single dice. Pathfinder really relies on making a target flat-footed, where they lose 2 points to their armor class. There's a great saying in Pathfinder, every +1 matters. And that is not wrong. So many times the party gives each other a small +1, and that was the difference between a hit and a miss. Oh, and a quick note on critical successes. In 5e, if you roll a natural 20 on a d20, it is a critical success for attacks. In Pathfinder, if your total is 10 above the target number, that goes for attacks, skill checks, etc., you also can gain a critical effect. When it comes to skills, I will say that I do think Pathfinder does have an edge. The skill system has degrees of success, and you can critically succeed or fail skill checks. There are tons of ways that skills can be used in Pathfinder, and 5e keeps them pretty simple. Again, the more robust the rules, the more there is to learn and remember. Generally, many players call Pathfinder Mathfinder, and yes, that is an apt name for it. In Pathfinder, there are 42 effects that can happen to a player or NPC. That is a lot compared to 5e, but it also covers a ton more instances that 5e does not. Again, if you want a more robust system, there are more rules. Although it is a lot, it removes a lot of the ambiguity that 5e DMs seem to have on a regular basis. 5e does stumble at higher levels of gameplay. Certain classes do outshine others at higher levels, and monsters are either overpowered or get walked over by the players. It can be pretty frustrating for a dungeon master. In my Dungeon the Mad Mage, there's definitely a disparity in assumed power once the group hit 15th to 20th level. Now, I have not had a chance to run 15th level characters in Pathfinder, but the characters seem to be pretty well balanced as they level. And the monsters also seem to be a little bit more balanced. At some point, I may just run a one-shot at 17th level with my group to see how weird the high level plays. Which system do I prefer? Well, Dungeons & Dragons, no matter the edition, well, not 4th edition,
You suck, you jackass.
will always hold a special place in my heart on the shelves. But going forward, I will be concentrating my efforts on Pathfinder 2e. And when the remastered comes out, I will be doing that as well. As a game master, I appreciate the support the game gets from Paizo. They have some great products, amazing adventures, and I do like a heavier rule system. Yes, there are lots of changes to learn, and my group is trudging through it fairly well, and I find combat to be faster with less, oh wait, I forgot to do XYZ due to the 3-action economy. The classes feel more robust with dedication options, feats, and a very robust skill system. Paizo does try to balance each class so that at a higher level, wizards do not outshine the fighters. That is a key thing for me. So many neat options that players really do make their characters unique and not just a cookie cutter that seems to happen in 5e. Role-playing aside, because that's always a factor with a player, I do prefer the robustness of 2e. My money will be going to support Paizo and other companies going forward. WotC would really have to show me that the company and the products is taking a large step to get better and not just treat their players like walking walls. I did upload a video on the OGL and the Pinkerton drama that you can watch if you'd like to see my take on it. One of the glaring differences in 5e versus Pathfinder is not actually mechanical in nature. It's product. I've said many times that WotC does not support their releases. Campaigns get a hardcover book and then nothing after. It's almost as if they expect the third-party content creators to pick up the slack. Spelljammer, which is a beloved campaign from when I played 2e, was released last year and it was an atrocious mess. You needed 3 books that you had no choice to buy. And if you wanted just the rule book, it included a monster menagerie, which is underwhelming, an adventure that starts you at 5th level and only runs to 10. I ran that campaign with my group and we wrapped up in March. I had to do so much work to make that adventure playable, including grabbing third-party resources from for the Spelljammer Academy adventure, which again was just a bare bones adventure that Wizards of the Coast released. The Spelljammer Reddit was an invaluable resource, and it had maps, ideas for running the adventure, etc. They released Dragonlance, and there's no further support for it unless you turn to third-party content creator. Their next big release is Planescape, another favorite setting I used in 2nd edition. They're doing it again. A 3-book set that will just likely be an underwhelming release. I have no plans to purchase it, so I'll rely on others to review it. Paizo started their company writing a well-written adventure path for 3rd edition, and then Pathfinder 1st edition rules came out when D&D moved to 4th edition. And they kept up a steady pace of rulebooks, adventures to support the main story with tons of information about their world of Golarion. Then they dropped Starfinder a few years ago, and then Pathfinder 2e. Throughout that entire time, they've had a steady release of their own product to support their books.
What do you mean, psychotic rant?
The good news is that no matter which system you pick, the stories you create are free and yours. The rules follow the story. Story trumps rules. When people watch Critical Role, they're watching the story and not the gameplay. Most of Critical Role is storytelling and the actors' interactions with the story. And I've said it time and again, I will play and run 5e. I have a fantastic group of friends that I'm in a campaign with, but honestly, we could be running any system and that group would be fun and crazy because of the shenanigans. It makes no difference what game, but that's enough for me. As always, thank you for spending your time with me in your quest to become a better games master. If you're interested in more content, please like and subscribe below and click the bell for notifications on new videos. Comment below on which system you prefer. Remember, there is no right or wrong answer. We're all gamers here and everyone loves their games. Let your positivity speak for why you prefer one over the other. In the meantime, and in between time, that's it. Another Mythic episode. Thank you for watching, and may all your games be full of myth, mirth, and magic.